This week's daf, the Maseches Yoma, daf Zayin on Bais, going into daf Ches on Aleph. The Gemara says a halacha that's relevant for us every single day, not Shabbos, and is also connected to this week's parsha, the end of the parsha, the mitzvah of Tefillin. The Gemara says, the Amar Rabbi Bar Avuna, Chayiv Adam lemashmish b'tefillah b'chol shah v'shah. A person, while wearing his tefillin, he should be mamashmish, he should touch his tefillin. And the Gemara says the reason is, why should you touch your tefillin b'chol shah v'shah constantly? To remember you're wearing tefillin, not to have Hessach Hadaas. These are Isser Hessach Hadaas while wearing tefillin. The Gemara says, how do you know that these are Isser Hessach Hadaas while wearing tefillin? We're going to soon see what is the definition of Hessach Hadaas. But the Gemara says there's an Isser Hessach Hadaas from tzitz. We learn the Isser from tzitz. Uma tzitz, says the Gemara, ma tzitz she'ein boy ela skara achas, on the tzitz that the Kohen Gadol wore, that said Kodesh L'Hashem, it only had one time Hashem's name, Omra Toiral Mitzchay Tamid, that is a Isser Hessach Hadaas. Tefillin, sheyesh boy askoros harbe, tefillin that has many times the Eivishter's name. There are 4 parshios in the tefillin, with multiple times the Eivishter's name. Alachas kama v'kama, that is a Isser Hessach Hadaas. There's a few nakudas over here to speak about. The beginning, the Gemara begins about the din of Chayiv Adam lemashmesh, to touch the tefillin, b'chol shah. In today's Shiur, Be'ez Hashem, we're going to focus just on the point of the Isser Hessach Hadaas. The Gemara says there's a Isser Hessach Hadaas by tefillin, and it's learned from tzitz. Before going into understanding it, what is Hessach Hadaas, what defines Hessach Hadaas, is the Isser Hessach Hadaas midoiraisa, or it's an Isser midirabanan? Tosfos, right here, Daf Ches, starts off on the Gemara. The Gemara says it's a Kal V'Chaimer, and a Kal V'Chaimer is one of the Yud Gimel Midas. That means it would be midoiraisa. It would be midoiraisa. The Hainu is an Isser d'oiraisa of Hessach Hadaas. However, Tosfos asks a kasha on the Kal V'Chaimer. Tzitz is begolui, so that's why there's an Isser Hessach Hadaas. Masha'kin the tefillin, the Shem Hashem of the tefillin is not begolui. So Mela, what's the Kal V'Chaimer? It's true that tefillin has multiple Shemus Hashem, but it's inside, it's covered. It's covered. The tzitz, you know why now Mesiach Das? Because it's open. So Mamela Tosfos says that it's Einoi Kal V'Chaimer Gomer, and it's taka only midrabanan. So Tosfos learns that the Isser to be Mesiach Das while wearing tefillin is an Isser d'Rabbanan. That's Shitas HaTosfos. However, there are those that stam as I ask on Tosfos. The Svasemis right here asks, he says, what does mechusa have to do legabe the din of Hessach Hadaas? The Isser Hessach Hadaas is because of the kedusha of what you're wearing. The tzitz has kedusha and there's an Isser Hessach Hadaas. So you can't. There's an Isser Hessach Hadaas. So you have a Kal V'Chaimer tzitz that only has one time Hashem's name. There's Isser Hessach Hadaas. Kal V'Chaimer tefillin. What difference does it make that it's mechusa? It's true that mechusa makes an afgemina lagabe. Let's say mezuzah that needs to mechusa when you're doing something that's megune. Davar shebe'erva mechusa help is in the geya. But lagabe it's kaddish. The kedusha is the same kedusha even if it's covered. It's one kasha on Tosfos. Others, the Artzis HaChaim, the Malbim, as well as also the Yeshuas Yaakov Lembergerov, they both learn Shitas HaRambam. The Rambam holds that the Isser Hessach Hadaas is a Isser d'Oiraisa. It's an Isser d'Oiraisa. We'll see more about it, Behemshech Hashir, the Shitas HaRambam, but what's Negeya for right now, they understand that it's not even called Mechusa. It's true that the shemis are inside the bottom in the box. Tosfos has a different reason why maybe it's not Mechusa, because the shin is outside, but even how they understand the Shitas HaRambam, even the parashiyos inside, that's not called Mechusa. Mechusa is when you put on an external cover that's not relevant to the mitzvah. By tefillin, well, it's not mechusa. That's halacha l'moshe Messina, how tefillin is supposed to look with the bottom. That's not called mechusa. It's not called covered. The Mela, the Shitas HaRambam is that it's the is a kal v'chaimer. I say there is a kal v'chaimer, so it's a issa deraisa. Harei, we have a machlokes rishonim. If the din that the tefillin, when you wear tefillin, you're not allowed to have Hessach Hadaas, Negeya every day, besides Shabbos and Yom Tov. Is it a Issa d'Oraisa or a Issa d'Rabbanan? Machlokes Rishonim. What defines Hessach Hadaas? The translation of Hessach Hadaas is that you're distracted, your mind rolls away to other things besides what you're doing. A person's not focused. But what exactly, halachically, defines Hessach Hadaas? And I'll explain. One way you can understand Hessach Hadaas would mean that you just don't know you're wearing tefillin now. Meaning, the requirement is when you're wearing tefillin, kol zman you're wearing tefillin, you have to know you're wearing tefillin. If I ask you right now, do you have $1 in your pockets? You have to check. You don't know if you have $1. You'll check. You have to see. Do you have a pen in your pocket? I have to see if I have a pen. Tefillin, one way to understand is the Isser Hessach Hadaas is kol zman you're wearing tefillin. You have to know you're wearing tefillin. Your mind can't roll away from remembering you're wearing tefillin. That's one way to understand. And if it does roll away, that's Hessach Hadaas. The second way to understand Hessach Hadaas is not that you have to remember the whole time you're wearing tefillin, but you can't do anything disrespectful while you're wearing the tefillin. Disrespectful means something that if you're really wearing tefillin, you shouldn't be doing it. Just to illustrate, to bring out the two tzadim. If somebody learns with his tefillin, you're learning with your tefillin, you get a Rangaton, you're learning a Gemara, you're learning Tosfos, a Kasha, a Teretz, it's very likely that you're going to forget that you're wearing tefillin. You're not focused on that you're wearing tefillin, you're focused on what you're learning. And furthermore, davening, you're davening. You want to be mechavan the Pirush Amilis, so you're thinking about the davening, the Psuk, the Zimra, the Kriya Shema, the Shmai Nesrei, and then immediately you're not focused that you're wearing tefillin. You're definitely not doing something disrespectful, Adarab. It's a kavod for the tefillin, but it's very likely that while you're davening, while you're learning, while you're davening, you don't remember that you're wearing tefillin. Those are the two tzadim, yes. Good, very good. So you're saying, l'chayra, it's clearly that Hessach Hadaas can't mean that you have to focus, you have the tefillin the whole time, because we all daven Shemona Esrei with tefillin, and you're supposed to focus, Oymed l'fnei Hashem. Very good. We're going to get to that Behemshech in the Shiur. Very good. Excellent. Good point. But that would really clearly bring out the two tzadim. When you're davening, it's not something disrespectful, but it's lav dafka that you're focused wearing the tefillin. These two tzadim is a machlokes rishonim. It's a machlokes rishonim. The Shita of Rabbeinu Yoma, the Rosh in Brachas brings us Rabbeinu Yoma. The Tur brings this Shita as well also. You see in Shulchan Aruch, the Shulchan Aruch just says it is a Isser Hessach Hadaas, lahalacha. But the Shulchan Aruch doesn't define what Hessach Hadaas is. Machlokes rishonim. The Rabbeinu Yoma, the Rosh, and the Tur explain Hessach Hadaas means you're not allowed to be noyeg b'schoik v'kalas rosh. litzonis. While you're wearing tefillin, these are issa schoik v'kalas rosh. However, if you're not noying b'schoik v'kalas rosh, a person's working. In the olden days, people wore the tefillin the whole entire day. Maybe we'll see if there's a part 2 to this shiur. We'll go into the other parts, but now we're focusing just on the Isser Hessach Hadaas. You're allowed to work with your tefillin. Somebody that's a carpenter, some that's a shoemaker, a person's allowed to work with his tefillin. He's not doing something disrespectful to the tefillin. He's focused to make sure that he's doing his job right, and he's not focused on the tefillin that he's wearing. But as long as it's not tzchoik v'kalas rosh, he can wear the tefillin. That's the shittas Chaim, Rabbi and the Rosh. So versteht sich, when you daven, when you learn, there's no issue because Lamaisa there's no Hessach Hadaas. There's no Hessach Hadaas of kalas rosh. You don't remember you wearing the tefillin, but you. What type of tzchoik? Tzchoik means laughter. You're not allowed to laugh while you're wearing tefillin. The person has to be very serious. What's exactly tzchoik? So Rabbi Yaakov Emden in Moirik Tzia explains that tzchoik shall kalas rosh is aser. Tzchoik shall mitzvah, laughter of a mitzvah is mutter. For example, you're wearing tefillin, and next door, after you finish davening, you step in, there's a breakfast, sheva brachas, and there's somebody there that's being mesameach to chasen and kala, and the other one's laughing away. You're going with your tefillin, you're allowed to laugh. Tzchoik is mutter. Tzchoik of kalas rosh is what's aser. And he's mesupik. He says could be tzchoik shel reshus is even mutter. He brings maybe al pi de zoyar, could be with Slav dafka. Tzchoik shel reshus would be mutter. Tzchoik shel reshus means just a good joke, and to laugh. No kalas rosh. Person's should be happy, and you're allowed to have a good joke and laugh. So shal reshus is questionable, but for sure tzchoik shal mitzvah is mutter. The isser tzchoik is only a tzchoik of kalas rosh. And to add on to this, the Chafetz Chaim says in Meshurah that hu adin dvarim b'teilim is included in tzchoik and kalas rosh. Dvarim b'teilim. Dvarim b'teilim doesn't mean to discuss, you need to make an arrangement, could you pick up my kids, could you go here? That's not called Dvarim B'Teilim. Dvarim B'Teilim is stam gehakt, stam speaking, Dvarim B'Teilim, that you're not allowed to in the tefillin. But things that are necessary, even that are unrelated to davening and learning, is mutter. Lefi this pshat in Hessach Hadaas, which means that you don't have to remember you're wearing tefillin. The only Isser Hessach Hadaas is to do something disrespectful to the tefillin. The shaila is, the Gemara in Shabbos, the Gemara says that you're allowed to wear tefillin samach l'chashecha. We should be choishish that it's going to come Shabbos, you're going to go out with the tefillin, you're going to carry the tefillin. So the Gemara says we're not choishish that you're going to carry the tefillin, because you know you're wearing the tefillin because he's an Isser Hessach Hadaas. So the question that's asked on Lefi these Rishonim, that the Isser Hessach Hadaas doesn't mean that you remember that you're wearing the tefillin. The Isser Hessach Hadaas just means that you're not allowed to do something disrespectful to the tefillin. So Friday afternoon you're wearing tefillin, you don't remember that you're wearing tefillin, you're just not allowed to do anything disrespectful. So I say, why are we not choishish that it's going to come Friday night? You're allowed to wear tefillin on Shabbos. We're still wearing tefillin, you don't have to take it off. But why are we not choishish that Shema Yavreni, you're going to carry the tefillin? If you understand that Hessach Hadaas, like we'll get to soon, the other tzad is, you constantly have to remember you're wearing tefillin. So then we understand that you remember you have the tefillin, you're not going to carry it on Shabbos. But if Hessach Hadaas only means that you're now to do something disrespectful to the tefillin, disrespectful while you're wearing the tefillin, so I say, why are we not choishish over here that you're going to walk out Shabbos with the tefillin? So the Darkei Moshe answers this kasha on the tour, on that then, because the Darkei Moshe asks a stiris atur. The tour says, like we mentioned, Hessach Hadaas just means kalas rosh. But the Tur also paskins the halacha that a person's allowed to have tefillin samach l'chashecha. So the Darkei Moshe says, he answers, since these isser of kalas, since these you're not allowed to be Masiach das like the kalas roish, memela you're going to remember. Since Hessach Hadaas, you're not allowed to be noig b'kalas roish, memela you're going to remember. What does that mean? What does that mean, memela you're going to remember? You're not going to remember you're wearing the tefillin, you're just going to remember, you're just not going to be noig b'schaik v'kalas roish. So the Shagas Aryeh explains, and the Shagas Aryeh says that the pshat is that to not be noig b'kalas roish, and mainly what the Gemara says is chayav adam lamashmeish b'tefillin. What's going to make sure that you're talking on noig b'schek b'kalas roish? The teretz is you're going to remember by being lamashmeish b'tefillin. Once you're going to be lamashmeish b'tefillin, remember not to be noig b'schek b'kalas roish. Memela, you're also not you're gonna remember you're wearing the tefillin. So memela like this. Memela, the isser Hessach Hadaas is an isser just not to be noyig b'schek v'kalas roish. But lamaisa, once you need to not be noyig b'schek v'kalas roish, you're gonna remember you have tefillin. You could go out Shabbos. You could wear it erev Shabbos samach l'chashecha. What's good, lefi this shita in the Rishonim, is the halacha that the Gemara, it's a Gemara in Sukkot Daf Chavav, that a person is allowed to sleep with his tefillin, shinas arai. It's brought la halacha in Shulchan Aruch. But says, the Rosh already says, lefi my shita, that I hold that Hessach Hadaas only means, what does Hessach Hadaas mean? You're only not allowed to be noyi b'kalas roish. But you don't have to remember you're wearing the tefillin. If you don't be'etzim have to remember you're wearing the tefillin, shinas arai is mutter. When a person sleeps, whatever the shiur is shinas arai, but that brief dozing off, when you're dozing off, you don't remember you're wearing tefillin, that's fine, as long as you're not being noyi b'kalas roish. Dozing off is not kalas roish. So memela, it's very geshmak, it's miyushiv. Why a person, it's mutter, shinas arai, to doze off with your tefillin, even though you're forgetting while you're dozing off, you're forgetting that you're wearing tefillin, but it's mutter. Why is it mutter? Because l'maisa there's no schayk for kalas roish. Harei, from all the above, a very clear takeaway, Hessach Hadaas that we're learning here in the Kollel Boiker, the Gemara in Yoma, Daf Zayin Amud Bais Daf Ches, Hessach Hadaas means being noyig b'schoik u'b'kalas roish. Anything else doesn't go into Hessach Hadaas, and there's no isser. Before going to the other shita, the other Rishonim, it's important to mention the Emek Bracha. The Emek Bracha takes us a step weiter, a bit more, and he says like this. He brings a ritva, and he says, true Hessach Hadaas means schoik v'kalas roish, but it means a bit more. It means that a person has to, when he wears his tefillin, he has to be biyira. Biyira doesn't mean that he's allowed to laugh schoik shal mitzvah. A person has to be biyira. When a person works, he could also be with respect. Meaning to say is, up until now we understand, as long as you're not schoik and kalas roish, you're okay. It says the Emek Bracha, even in this shita, it has to be a bit more. A person has to be with respect. A person has to be with respect. A person could not be doing schoik v'kalas roish, but not be, how he calls it, biyira, with respect. A person has to be with respect. The Ritva, when he says tefillin, how do you, sleeping in tefillin, shinas aray, that's mutter. So the Ritva says the isser is not to move, your mind shouldn't go off l'divrei choil, but the mind doesn't have to be on the tefillin. Meaning to say is not just schoik v'kalas roish is aser, a person shouldn't be disrespectful, a person should be with kavod, with yira, with ema while wearing the tefillin. However, there are Rishonim that argue. The Shitas HaRambam, It's not mafurish in the Shittas HaRambam, but the Shagas Aryeh has the whole Siman Lamed Tes. He understands like that the Shittas HaRambam and the Shittas HaRamban. The Rambam, in Perik Dalet Mehilchas Tefillin, the Rambam says that somebody that's bitstar min Tefillin and somebody that's ein daite miyosheves just can't settle his mind. He's bitsar, is potter min Tefillin. Potter min Tefillin. Somebody that's bitsar, somebody that can't, his mind is all over the place. Why should he be potter min Tefillin? He says, Mishum Hessach Hadaas. But if Hessach Hadaas just means that you shouldn't do something disrespectful, there's nothing disrespectful about having you being bitsar or having your mind all over the place, not meyushev. So why should he be potter min Tefillin? Says the Shagas Aryeh, pshat in the Rambam is because the Rambam learns that Hessach Hadaas means that you don't know that you're wearing the tefillin. And Memela, if a person is bitsar, a person ain't daitoi miyusheves, a person's not settled, it's very easy for a person to forget that he's wearing tefillin. Dahainu Hessach Hadaas means forgetting that you're wearing tefillin. And he says, he brings, that's also the Shittas Ramban in Teiras Adam. The Ramban Legabe in Hilchas Avelis, the Tur brings this in Yeridea. That a oval, b'shas, bechi, b'shas, he's sad, he's crying, is potter min Tefillin. Why is he potter min Tefillin? There's no schoik, there's no kalas roish. Adarab, it's the opposite. The Teretz understands the Shagas Aryeh from the Ramban, because a person, when he's wearing tefillin, has to remember that he's wearing tefillin. So even if we stop right here this year, it's very clear in Machlekes Rishonim, what's the definition of Hessach Hadaas? Does Hessach Hadaas mean just not to be noyig b'schoik v'kalas roish? You don't have to remember constantly you're wearing the tefillin, just don't be noyig b'schoik v'kalas roish. Or Hessach Hadaas means, the Isser Hessach Hadaas is that you're not allowed to forget that you're wearing tefillin. If a person forgets he's wearing tefillin, he's over on this Isser, either the Reis or the Rabbanon of Hessach Hadaas. The same, we said the Rambam, the Ramban, the same is also the Shita Mukabetzas HaMenachos. The Shita Mukabetzas HaMenachos is on the daf, on the side, on the page of the Gemara, brings from Rabbeinu Simcha, that asks somewhat like a question that you asked before. If davening needs kavana, so how do you have, you're wearing tefillin and also kavana for davening? How do you do both? Which, by the way, if you learn like the Rosh, it's not a kasha b'chlal. Because what do you mean, how do you do both? You're not Mesiach Das because you're not Schoik B'Kalas Rosh, and you have Kavana for davening. But Frek the Shita, how do you do both? Kavana that you're wearing tefillin and Kavana that you're davening. And you know what the Shita answers? And a Chanami Taka, you can't have both. Oisik b'mitzvah potem en ha-mitzvah. Dahainu. Not the pshat is that you potter from the mitzvah of tefillin. Maybe if there'll be a part two, we'll go into it. The pshat is if you have Hessach Hadaas, so you're not Makayim the mitzvah. You're Makayim the mitzvah pashtis. You're just over on an Isser, either the Reis or the Rabbanon of Hessach Hadaas. Says the Shita that when a person's davening, you can't do both. You can't daven and also have kavanah that you're wearing tefillin. And chanami taka, oisek b'mitzvah of davening, potem in a mitzvah of Hessach Hadaas. You can't do both. But al kopanim yoytze from this shita also is that you can't do both. Lefi what we said the Rosh, that Hessach Hadaas just means schoik v'kalas roish. During davening, you're not knowing b'schoik v'kalas roish. You can have both. How are you allowed to sleep lefi the Rambam with tefillin? How are you allowed to wear tefillin Friday afternoon is moiridik lefi the Rambam? Why? Because if you're the Rambam, you're supposed to remember constantly you're wearing the tefillin. Savad, the Friday afternoon, you remember you're wearing the tefillin, you're not going to go outside. But how could you take a Shinas Arai? The Rambam himself paskins, it's a Gemara, Daf Chavav and Sukkah, the Rambam paskins al halacha, that one is allowed to have a Shinas Arai, a quick nap, with tefillin. When you have a quick nap, you don't remember that you're wearing the tefillin constantly. Says the Malbim in Artzas Chaim, what we said in the beginning of the Shiur, that the Shitas HaRambam is that the Isser Hessach Hadaas is the Iraisa. Taisus asked, Alachaira, it's covered. Says, so how we explained is that it's not covered. It's not covered. The bottom, this that the parashiyos are in the bottom, that's not called covered, because it's part of the mitzvah. However, if you put a cover on the tefillin, on top of the bottom, that is called covered, and then there's no Hessach Hadaas. If you take a look in the Rambam, the truth is the Gemara really brings Sudar, but Pashtus, in the content of what the Gemara brings, so the Harashi explains, it's referring to when it's not on you. In the Rambam says you could doze off with tefillin, but it has to be covered with a Sudar. The Hainu, when it's covered with a Sudar, then you have no limud from the tzitz, like what Taisus Kasha was. Taisus asked, how could you learn from the tzitz? The tzitz is begolui and tefillin is covered. So the Rambam says, no. Tefillin's also not covered, because Lamaisa, it's part of the mitzvah. But Lu Yitzur, it's covered. Yitaka can't learn from the tzitz, and there's no Isser Hessach Hadaas. That's one teretz. On the Shitas HaRambam, how one is allowed to doze off with tefillin. You have to remember constantly that you're wearing tefillin. Teretz says you cover it. Then there's no Isser Hessach Hadaas. However, there's a kasha on this teretz, a very simple kasha. We mentioned before, what's the makor for the Rambam? That Hessach Hadaas means you have to constantly remember you're wearing the tefillin. What's the makor? Because the Rambam says that if somebody's bitzar or somebody's unsettled, he's potem in a tefillin. Frek the Pri Yitzchak, wait a second. You just told me that if you put a cover on the tefillin, then that's an exemption on Hessach Hadaas. So somebody that's unsettled, he should put on tefillin, and he should just cover the tefillin. Mameli says a different teretz. He says, so Yesoid Godel, and he says like this. You know why, Lafi the Rambam, one is allowed to doze off with the tefillin? You have to remember constantly that you're wearing tefillin. So he says, Moiridik, when you doze off, you're not being Makayim the mitzvah of tefillin. Only when you Makayim the mitzvah, you're not allowed to have Hessach Hadaas. You're wearing tefillin. These are Issa Hessach Hadaas. If the tefillin's on you, but you're not being Makayim the mitzvah, it's technically like it's put away. And there's no Issa Hessach Hadaas. He says, Bedoima, wearing it and dozed off is like wearing it on Shabbos. There's no mitzvah. So if there's no mitzvah, there's no Issa Hessach Hadaas. The Issa Hessach Hadaas, Bedoima, like we learn Issa Hessach Hadaas by the tzitz. V'hoya mitzchay tamid. If he's wearing it. When you wear tefillin and you dozed off, you potter minat tefillin, you're not wearing tefillin. The middle is no Issa Hessach Hadaas. So just to conclude, we said very clearly a machloikis rishonim. What is the definition of Hessach Hadaas? There is an Isser, either Medrash or Medrabban of Hessach Hadaas when you go wear tefillin. What's the Isser? What's the definition of Hessach Hadaas? Is it just not to be noyig, beschoik bekalas roish, not to be noyig inappropriately with tefillin? Or the opposite, when you're wearing tefillin, you must remember that you're wearing the tefillin. What's la halacha? And this machloikis Rishonim, how do we paskin? Lamaisa, we paskin lakula. luckily, we paskin lakula. Even for us that we only wear tefillin in this short amount of time, we paskin lakula. The Shari Tshuva brings that the olam is soymech lahakol, like Rabbeinu Yoma and the Rosh. The Shulchan Aruch Harav, the Shulchan Aruch doesn't just says Isser Hessach Hadaas, he doesn't explain. Shulchan Aruch Harav says ve'eino nikra Hessach Hadaas only when you beschoik v'kalas roish. The Mishnah Berurah Simon Mem Dalet Sif Katan Gimel v'lei choshev Hessach Hadaas ela k'sha'im beschoik v'kalas roish. So that's la halacha. That's la halacha. However, everybody brings that min hamufcher, one should try to, yes, be machmer like the tzad Hessach Hadaas that we said from the Rambam, the Ramban, the Shita Mukabetzes, while you're wearing tefillin to remember that you're wearing tefillin. Shulchan Aruch Harav says, min hamufcher not to mesiach das at all. The Chafetz Chaim says, min hamufcher. However, even though it's min hamufcher to remember constantly you're wearing tefillin, with the exception during davening and learning, which technically is basically most of the time wearing the tefillin. You're davening, and when you're davening, you should have kavanah for davening, and not kavanah that you're wearing the tefillin. Like we saw, you can't do both. The Bir Halacha brings the Pri Megadim that says that maybe min hamufcher not to mesiach das from davening and learning, also from the tefillin. And he says, he brings the Ber Heitev that already brings the Arizal that was makbet to always remember when wearing the tefillin that he has the tefillin. Zulas exception of davening and learning. Davening actually says Shmoneh Esrei. It could be friendship between Shmoneh Esrei and other parts of davening. And he says, it's not la halacha to be makbet. It brings even the Zerua. You don't have to be makbet during davening and learning. So again, we have a machlokes rishonim. What's the definition of Hessach Hadaas? La halacha Hessach Hadaas means just not to be noyeg b'schoiku b'kalas roish. However, mitzvah min hamufcher, when you're wearing a tefillin, you should remember you're wearing tefillin. Besides, during davening and learning, you don't have to remember you're wearing the tefillin. You should be focused on the davening and on the learning. Have a wonderful Shabbos.